gotta be real with you guys. I do not read Dostoevsky during the summertime. Now, is that a humble brag meant to imply that I do in fact read Dostoevsky at other times of the year? Yes, of course, but I'm also trying to make a point here, which is that there's a time and a place for everything. And when it's the middle of summer and you're sitting on a plane or you're lying on a beach towel somewhere, I'm sorry, I think most of us are not looking to be transported back to 19th century St. Petersburg. I don't know, maybe you're the exception, in which case you should probably be watching a YouTuber far more sophisticated than myself, but for the rest of you, welcome back everybody. I'm Jake, the Scary Story Guy, and today we are talking about a novel called Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulic. It's a horror mystery novel that came out a few years back, and by the end of this video, you are going to know what it's about and what I thought of it, but you're also going to know whether you, yes you, personally, will enjoy this book, and I'm going to do it all without spoiling anything. This is incredible content. I can't believe I'm giving this away for free, and I don't even have a Patreon to bug you about, so really, the least you could do is like this video and subscribe to this channel, am I right? Now, one of the blurbs on the back of this book describes it as a perfect summer thriller. So we're going to look at it through that lens. In order to be an effective summer thriller, in my view, a book needs to deliver on three fronts. It needs to be entertaining, it needs to be fast-paced, and it needs to be accessible to, the vast majority of readers. In other words, if you've read House of Leaves, it needs to be the exact opposite of that in every way. So let's dive in. Hidden Pictures is the story of Mallory Quinn, a recovering addict in her early 20s who lands a job as the live-in nanny for a wealthy couple, and specifically their 5-year-old son, Teddy. Problem is, Teddy's got an imaginary friend, and he's drawing pictures, and the pictures are freaky. And eventually, our gal Mallory discovers more about the history of the property this family lives on, and she starts to suspect that, maybe there's something more afoot here than just a child's active imagination. And I think the first thing to mention here, it's sort of the gimmick of the book, for lack of a better term, is the pictures. You really do see them, the stuff that Teddy's drawing. This book's about 400 pages long, maybe 30, 40 of those pages are artwork. And I can't lie, the artwork is pretty effective. So right off the bat, I'll tell you, if you tend to like to consume your books in audio format, this is probably not the book for you, right? Because I'm told that the audiobook simply describes the pictures you're seeing. There's not an accompanying PDF or anything, so I would say definitely pick up a hard copy. But it's good. The artwork sort of evolves in a way over the course of the story, and I felt like the people who created it did a really good job of letting the artwork build intrigue without spoiling too much of what's going on too early. Because it's not until pretty late in the book that we really start to piece all the artwork together in a way that forms a cohesive narrative, which means that, we've got this creepy artwork hanging over the entire book, but it's adding to the mystery rather than detracting from it. I will say, though, one nitpick that I had with maybe how the artwork was presented is that sometimes the author will kind of spoil what's in the artwork before you turn the page to see it. Sort of like, Teddy handed me a picture. It depicted this creepy thing and this creepy thing, and then you turn the page to see the picture. And it feels like it would have been a lot more effective if it had been like, Teddy handed me a picture, and then you turn the page to see the picture, and then maybe there's some added commentary on top of that. But ultimately, I feel bad for using the word gimmick, because I feel like the artwork ended up being a lot more than that. It was very additive to the story. Not to mention, when you get a big chunk of artwork and you can kind of flip through the pages quickly, it scratches that itch of, I'm blazing through this book. I'm making progress that you can see. I know it's not just me that appreciates that. You do too, don't lie. All right, moving on. We've got a pretty small domestic cast of characters here, which I appreciated. Rekulic certainly didn't fall into the coked up Stephen King trap of making things almost comically sprawling and convoluted. And of course, some of the characters are more memorable than others. Strangely, I'd actually say that our protagonist, Mallory, is one of the least interesting, or at least maybe least dynamic characters here. But the wealthy couple who hires Mallory to be their nanny, Ted and Carolyn, they're quite a bit more interesting. I felt like I was just found myself gripped every time they were on the page. For me, I think maybe the issue is that Mallory never quite feels like a real person, just not quite fleshed out enough. She's more like a character outline than an actual character. Just as an example, a few times she mentions that she's Christian and that her Christianity is very important to her. But I would say we never actually get to see any of the emotion or conviction behind that. It's a bit tell, don't show. It's kind of like she just outright says, I am Christian. My Christianity is very meaningful to me. But we never actually see that manifest in any meaningful way. Whereas with Ted and Carolyn, I felt that Rekulic did a much better job of kind of showing us subtle aspects of their character just through like little lines of dialogue or expressions or gestures, things like that. And I've got to say, I really liked the relationship between Ted and Carolyn and Mallory, sort of the class dynamic that comes into play between them, because obviously there's a lot of suspense in the story and from the plot, the supernatural angles that are coming into play here. But to me, there was like just as much, if not more, suspense coming from just like like, these people are your employers and you've got to walk this really fine line in how you interact with them. Rekulic is great at depicting the kind of inherent awkwardness in this relationship where, like, you're a live-in nanny, basically. So you're not a part of the family, but they're essentially paying you to act like you are. So you're like the one member of the family who's always walking on eggshells and afraid you're going to say the wrong thing to upset these people. Not to mention the fact they have entrusted you with the safety of their only child, and you're on a really short leash because they know you are a recovering addict. And it's compounded by the fact that Mallory grew up in South Philly. So, you know, in contrast, Ted and Carolyn are very, like, posh and cultured and kind of giving her access to this level of wealth and material prosperity that she's never even seen, much less experienced. And that uneasy class dynamic is compounded by the fact that Mallory is, shall we say, not great at walking on those eggshells. She's constantly just doing and saying things that I'm just like, ooh, girl, you're gonna get your ass fired. Like, many times in this book, my heart's racing and my palms are getting sweaty, and it has nothing to do with, like, creepy pictures or creepy kids or anything like that. It's literally just like, I don't want to watch this girl lose her job. And in keeping with this, you know, nothing feels too sprawling or convoluted in terms of the characters, it's the same with the plot. Rekulic is a very surgical author. You can always tell that pace is at the front of his mind the whole time he's writing, which I appreciate because I hate it when an author just doesn't really feel like they're clued into what kind of book they're writing. Like, if you want to set the expectation with your reader that this is going to be literary prose and we're going to, you know, frolic through fields of flowery sentences, then great, you know, by all means. But there's nothing fancy about Hidden Pictures. This book, Rekulic has a job to do, which is to entertain you and get you to turn the next page. And he does that successfully, basically the entire time. I'll also say that some of the twists and turns the story takes, especially near the end, may be a little controversial. Certainly the Mad About Everything crew on Goodreads found a lot to be mad about here. But for those of you who aren't chronically enraged, I would say that Hidden Pictures absolutely sticks the landing. It's not necessarily a book that survives, like, intense scrutiny. If you spend several hours thinking about it after you put it down, you know, maybe you'll come away a little bit less satisfied, but at the end of the day, that's not what we're doing here. We're examining Hidden Pictures as a summer horror thriller. And so we gotta look at, does the book deliver on entertainment? And the answer is yeah, the whole time. Is the book fast-paced? Definitely. Very quick. It's accessible as well, a nice breezy read. It's even got pictures. I mean, what more do you want? Hidden Pictures markets itself as an effective summer thriller, and it 100% delivers on that. I really enjoyed it start to finish. It's not necessarily a book I'm gonna revisit, or even one that I'm gonna spend much time thinking about once I'm done editing this, but you know, like I said, this ain't Crime and Punishment. I personally read a good chunk of Hidden Pictures on Newport Beach last month, which I recommend, but you know, any beach would probably do. So yeah, buy it, read it, enjoy it. Just don't get the audiobook. Alright guys, that about does it for me today, but stay tuned for more spooky content coming soon. And as always, thank you for watching this video, and here's hoping you survive to see the next one.